In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at BigQuery and how to connect BigQuery to Looker Studio using views. So views can be insanely powerful, and we actually use them for most of our client reports. Basically, any client report we have that uses BigQuery, we use views. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about that, and we're going to try and replicate a little bit of the GA4 exploration inside of BigQuery, and then save that as a view and connect that to Looker Studio. Now, another example of what we do with views is actually on this page right here. So if you go and download the cheat sheet here from the link right here, betterthandata.com/YouTube, then we actually store all of these entries inside of BigQuery as well. So when we create internal reports, we create views that have all of the leads from like all of the different form submissions and things that we have across a few different sites. So we can analyze and put all of those there. But if you do want this sheet, go to betterthandata.com/YouTube, and you can kind of see this gut check ranking of different conversion rates that we use for clients. So we say, hey, like when we're analyzing your website or whatever, we use these kind of guidelines as a way to know where to optimize next. Okay, so there's that. And we use views for this, and we're going to talk about views right now. So let's jump into that. All right, so here is that cheat sheet. And what we're going to do is actually inside of the GA4 UI exploration, we're going to kind of rebuild a little bit of this report inside of BigQuery. We're going to see if we can get it to match, and then we're going to build a view out of it and connect it to Looker Studio. So the way we're going to do that, let's just first take a look here at what we got going on. So we've got the last 7 days, and we're just breaking down by date, by page location, and then all of the events that happen on that day. So our dimensions are page location, date, and event name. In fact, I may want to rearrange the, let's see, do it here. Oh, date's already first, then landing page, not landing page, page location, and then event name. So we're just going to have a breakdown of all the events that happen on across all the pages with the sessions and users. And we're going to rebuild this in BigQuery. So let's get a little bit familiar with BigQuery. So here we are inside of the BigQuery interface. We already have our analytics property linked to BigQuery. And so what that appears is under our project name, we have the data set, which is the BigQuery GA4 export. So it says analytics underscore, and then this is the property ID. So this ends in 450. Just real fast, I could show you that. So if we go to property settings, here is that property ID. So it's analytics underscore, and then the property ID. So here we are back to our thing. So then if we look inside of this, we've got our events. So we have the events table, and then we have the events intraday table. So what's the difference between events and events intraday? Events is the long-term storage of it, and events intraday is where real-time data is coming into these tables. So this is like if you want today, or it still has yesterday's table there, in fact. So this is like today's data, and this is yesterday back data. And it's partitioned, so you can actually see that there's 26 days worth of data here, and that's what this 26 represents. So events underscore and then 26 means there's 26 days. It's partitioned on the date. But here you can see which, like in the preview, you can see the table actually is events underscore 2023-02 February 21, day 21 of February. So anyway, not a BigQuery course in itself here. But yeah, so we want to be able to query this and get these dimensions and metrics. So first let's start with date. And the way I like to start is just click on so if you click into the table, go to schema, and then click on the thing, it'll start to build that query for you and have the select and from there for you. So I'm going to remove this limit. We're just going to keep this in split view just so we can kind of see what the schema is, and then building our query over here. We don't need this anymore, so let's just make that a little bit smaller like that. Perfect. And it automatically is filling in our from statement for us. Let's format this so it looks nice. So we have select event date from this table. And it is selecting one particular day because we selected it from a single day. So it's choosing a single day. Let's actually just blow this out and do star. So it's going to select from all of the events tables. So we need the date. What else do we need? We need the page location, the event name. So we're going to grab that page location and the event name. So can I just grab page location like this? Well, let's go look. Is page location one of the properties here in the schema. It's not. So if we actually preview this table, right, page location is not a top level like property here. Page location actually lives within the event parameters. So if we go to preview and we're looking at the event parameters here, so here's, for example, a page view event, right? And then inside each one of the events, there's the property of page location, and it's in the value is a string value. So that's important. If you're unnesting event params, we do need to know that. So what we want to do is we want to get the value, the string value, from the event parameters where the key is page location. So that's how we're going to do that. Then the other things we need are sessions and total users. So users is a top level property, user pseudo ID. So what we can do is do a count distinct of user pseudo IDs, which is the user ID according to GA. But then the session ID, again, is nested inside the event params key under this key here, GA session ID, but that is in the integer value. So that's not a string value like the page location. It's a number value, an integer value inside of the event param as well. So we're going to do a little concatenation there for the session ID to concatenate user pseudo ID and session ID. So won't explain in depth all of these like functions and things. We're kind of just going to go quickly by this because we want to get to views, right? Views are what we're talking about. So if you do want like more in depth, we teach all of this inside of Better Than Data, the program, how to go in depth and do all these queries and stuff. So anyway, let's begin. So we need to use a scalar subquery to get the page location, the session ID, and then we're going to do some aggregate functions. So in order to get page location, we are going to say little scalar subquery. Let's give this an alias. Okay, so whatever we put here, we're going to rename it as page location. So we're going to say select the value dot string value. So if we come back to this thing, we want the value dot string value of the event. So select value dot string value from unnest event underscore params. Okay, so we're unnesting this event params dealio. We're getting the string value and which one of these rows do we want. So where key is equal to page location. And then I think we need to close the parentheses there. Okay, so get the string value from the unnested event parameters where the key is page location. So that'll give us page location. We rename that as that. So we've got the date, we've got our page location now, we've got the event name, and we want to get the user pseudo ID, user, and I always misspell this, user pseudo ID, and then we want to get the session ID. Oh, I probably spelled this wrong again. Did you mean let's see, SEU, so that's it, SEU. And then we want to get the session ID. So we're going to do another little scalar subquery here. So select, this time it's in the int value. So right before we got the string value, now we want the int value to get this GA session ID. Select value.int value from unnest event params where the key is equal to GA session ID. And we'll call this as session ID. So just to look at that again, we've got our session ID here, which is in the event params key. We've got our integer value for the session ID. So we're saying select the int value right here from the unnested event params object where the key is session ID. So that is how we're going to return that. And let's just run this right now to see what we return. So we've got our date, we've got our page location, we've got the event name, and then we have the pseudo ID and the session ID. Now we're going to do one more thing that's a little bit more advanced to get a more useful session ID, a more accurate session ID. It won't really make a difference with our small data set, but it does make a difference with bigger data sets. Session ID is a timestamp. So technically, two people coming to your website could have the same timestamp, which we want to avoid. So we're going to actually concatenate the user pseudo ID with this session ID in order to get a more true session ID, more unique session ID. So we're going to use a concat function to do that. Concat, and it's going to look like this. So one value will be the session ID, and the other value is going to just be the user pseudo ID. So I'm going to copy this, just like that. So concatenate the user pseudo ID and the session ID, and keep that named as session ID. All right, now we need to do some groupings by, right? Because these top three are dimensions, and the bottom two, the user pseudo ID and the session ID, are metrics. So we need to group by the dimensions and then do aggregation on the metrics. So to do that, we're going to say group by date, or we call it event date, event name, and page location. So we're going to group by those things, and now it's going to tell us, can't really see the error here, zoom that over. It's saying your user pseudo ID is not grouped or aggregated, so we need to aggregate this. And what we want to do is get a count distinct of user pseudo IDs, and that should give us the total count of users grouped by those dimensions. So we're going to say count distinct user pseudo ID as users. We'll rename that to be our users. And then here we're going to do the same thing, a count distinct of this entire function. And we're going to keep that named as, instead of session IDs, sessions. So now we have our 3 dimensions with our 3 sessions. So let's run this, see what we get. Our 3 dimensions with our 2 metrics. I don't know what I'm saying. All right, so we have our event date. So we're grouping by date, page location, and event name. And then we have the number of users and the number of sessions that did that event on that page on that date, aggregated. Okay, so now that we have this, let's order by something so we can compare to this a little bit. So let's order by, what are we ordering by here? We can order by maybe sessions is what it's ordered by here. So let's just order by sessions to see if we can get something that matches. So order by, and then sessions, descending. We'll hit run. So now we should have something that is somewhat comparable to the other report here. Oh, also we need a date range. We need to specify the correct date range here. So we're going to say from this events table, in analytics, our date range is the 16th to the 22nd. So let's add that in as a condition. So to do that, the last portion here where we did a star is called a table suffix. So we need to specify that the table suffix is between our 2 dates. So date 1 and date 2. So the date 1 we want is going to be 2023-02-16 and 2023-02-22. 2023-02-16. Copy that, and 2023-02-22. So between the 16th and the 22nd. From, this should be where, not part of from. So a little troubleshooting here. So let's grab this. From where table suffix between 20, yeah, okay, that should work. So let's see if it does. So let's now run this. So we've got the right date range, we've got our 3 dimensions, we've got our 2 metrics, and we are rocking and rolling. So let's see, are we ordering by sessions descending? Looks good. So the top result here, we've got on the 17th, better than data page view, 20 sessions. 2017th, better than data, convert box views, for 20. Oh, it's because those have the tame. So 2015, 2015. Let's see if that's what we got. 2015, 2015. We did. So then scroll for 2014. Let's see here. Scroll 2014. Okay, so things are looking pretty good, pretty comparable with the query we did inside of BigQuery with what the GA4 exploration is also telling us. So now let's connect this to Looker Studio. So a long way around to get to that. And what I'm gonna show you how to do this. So what we do now is we want to save this. We want to save this query as a view. And what the view now is going to do is save the output from this query as a new table inside of the dataset. So instead of us having to run this query over and over again, it's kind of like saving the query, saving the output of that query as its own table. So let's choose the dataset here. So we're going to choose our analytics with property ID right there. And then let's just call this our events by date location table. So just as an example, test. So I know to remove this later. So we'll choose that and we'll hit save. Okay, now if we come back over to our workspace here, we expand this again. May need to reload the page here. I'm going to copy this and save it just in case we lose it. So reload. We look in our GA4 data, we're in this workspace. Now we have our new view here. So we have events by date location test that we just saved. And if we look at the details of this, the schema and everything is now matches the output of the previous query. And if we go to details, we can see what the query was that is producing this table. And the reason we do this is because now when we connect to Looker Studio, we connect to this view instead of having to connect to like directly doing a query from Looker Studio, we connect to this view. That way, when we're querying this one table, we're not rerunning the entire data set. We're taking the entire data set, we're querying it with a query, saving that as a view. So we got the entire data set, we go to a view, and then in Looker, we're just going to query that view that has the summary of the information that we want. Therefore, we're not querying the entire table every time to like run up our query costs and things like that. So I think what we can do is move this tab to the left, kind of make things a little more succinct. So we had the original table over here. We now have our saved view that we are going to connect to Looker Studio. So here we are. Let's go to view, not view. Everything is making me reload it. Here we go. So connect our data studio. So we're going to connect to BigQuery. So we're going to choose this here. We're then going to choose our project for better than data. Here it is, our events by date location test. So I was in just the wrong project. Okay, so events by date location test. We're going to grab that, hit add, and now it's giving us an error. All right, another round of some testing here. I think I know why this is happening. So the query here, we're saving this view with a name that starts with events underscore. So that's kind of like already taken. So we can't do that. So we're going to rename this. All right, we finally got that sorted. Had to delete the view, add this one in. Okay, so fun fact, do not name your views events something, events underscore something. So there we go. We got a YouTube test view. We got our data here. So now what we're going to do is come back to our thing and reconnect this data source. So edit connection, my projects. We're going to go GA4 data, analytics, and then we've got YouTube test views. Here we are. Now we're rocking and rolling. We're going to reconnect this, hit apply, and we now have our table that we can replicate and have the same style report from the exploration here inside of Looker Studio. So we want to put in our event location, we've got the date, and we can have event name here. So then we want our users as a metric. So we want this to be count, well, sum actually, because we already did count to see. We already aggregated before. So we got users there, and then we got sessions, so users and sessions. And so this table should match the other table. that we had both in BigQuery and in G4. So now, long story short, the benefit of this is that we are querying a smaller table that already contains the answers that we want. That is called a view, and we're not querying the entire data set inside of BigQuery and racking up like much more unnecessary query costs there. All right, so that's one way to get the data from BigQuery into Looker Studio using views so that you're querying a subset of the data instead of querying the entire data set always all the time. Let me know if you have any questions.